Yesterday, one of the things that we saw was a vindication of David Icke's precept that just when you think they couldn't go any lower, they do. And what we witnessed yesterday was a major outbreak of virtue signalling by all of the kind of people who can be expected to virtue signal. And now today we've discovered that in relation to the Tullamore incident, that they don't have a suspect. That's about the most legally unassailable way you can put it. They don't have a suspect. So to suggest that this is gender related is at least one step too far. You could say that it's many steps too far, but it's safer just to say that it's one step too far, because sometimes one step too far is over the cliff edge, and this is, I think, what has happened. So, of course, Varadkar, the dirty, scummy reptile that he is, started the virtue signalling and how we have to have a conversation. Yes, we have to have a conversation about male violence against women. I'm going to say something now that a lot of people might find contentious. In Ballyjamesduff, a man by the name of Alan Haw is considered to have murdered his wife and children. He was dead, and they were dead as well, so there has been no criminal investigation to the point of a criminal trial. Nobody's been actually charged with a murder there. Bear in mind that you can never charge a dead person. That's not the way it works. So if a person is dead, they don't talk, but also if a person is dead, they cannot be sued, or they cannot be prosecuted in a criminal arena. I believe it's possible that Alan Haw was a psychopath. So after the death of Haw, his wife and his children, which objectively was horrific, you know, all the mainstream media binged on the notion of it being male violence against women. It's not. The greater probability is that Alan Haw was a psychopath. The strongest probability of what happened with Alan Haw, we don't know what happened with Alan Haw and his family, but the strongest probability is that it's what's known as familicide, because that is a well-documented thing. That's well known, and it does tend to be done by men. Not always, but quite often by men. So the biggest chance of what happened with the Haw family is familicide. But what I do remember was the binge by the woke establishment about how this was, lessons have to be learned. We have to have a conversation about male violence against women. No, we have to have a conversation. But it's not about what you're going to say. You're not going to set the narrative. We have to have a conversation with the psychopaths, but of course they won't have that, because you look at Varadkar and he's the biggest psychopath of all. But I think this time they're not necessarily going to be able to close down the narrative as successfully as they did last time. Because similar to Alan Haw, which was a primary school teaching, the primary school teacher killing, what we have is a primary school teacher killing, and we don't know what happened, and we don't know what motivated it, and we don't know who did it. But this time the reptiles jumped too quickly. And, if you look at the Court of Oak Twitter, which we've referred to before, it's interesting to see now what's being drawn out here. Frank McCourt described Richard Nixon as having a talent for watching and waiting. This is what we out here have done. We've watched and we're waiting, and we're still doing that. We're watching and we're waiting. So my own position regarding both Alan Haw and Tullamore is that we don't know what happened. The only way that we can possibly know what has happened in any such situation is if there's a criminal trial and a verdict at the end of it, guilty or not guilty. Take Paddy Jackson in Northern Ireland. He's an innocent man. He was exonerated by a criminal trial. Of course, all of our woke friends decided that the verdict wasn't something that they actually liked. It wasn't to their convenience that Jackson was indeed exonerated and found innocent. But this is the way it works. I remember talking to one idiot who said, he was only acquitted on a technicality. No, he wasn't. I said, don't use legalese that you're not familiar with. To be acquitted on a technicality has a specific meaning in law. Jackson had a full trial The Crown brought a full case against him, it went to a full hearing, all the Crown's evidence was heard, and the jury decided that Jackson was innocent. That is not to be acquitted on a technicality. Know your terms, please. Oh, she said, you know a lot, don't you? No, I said, I don't know a lot, I just know slightly more than you. And you have to be forthright with idiots who come out with remarks like that. Jackson was acquitted on a technicality. No, he was not. I'm not a lawyer. I have been to law school and I have studied criminal law. I haven't passed any of those law exams, but I do know enough to have been able to get myself acquitted in 2 minor criminal charges. They were district court, so they're not indictable. There's no judge or jury. But what I know is that if you're going to make a criminal case, the criminal case is brought by the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Republic of Ireland, the Crown Prosecution Service, I think, in parts of the UK. I'm not sure if it applies all over the UK or just England or whatever. They have to make the case. You don't have to make anything. This still applies. So if you take masks, the state has to make the case to justify forcing people to wear masks when they go to buy a pint of milk or a packet of eggs. We don't have to prove anything. So if I ever found myself in a litigious situation regarding masks, my approach would be to call upon the state to justify why we are supposed to be prosecuted if we don't wear a mask in the shops. It's not that I have to justify anything. You know, we never were forced to wear masks, and for some mysterious reason it came out of the blue in August 2020. Why have I not done it? Because nobody's prosecuted me. I've not got into trouble for not wearing a mask, yet I haven't worn a mask, apart from a leather riveted mask, and it stank out. Oh man, it stank afterwards. I did it for just a jokey photo shoot. So, you know, then if I were to go to the High Court and the judge would be saying, well, you know, how did you suffer here? What loss did you suffer? The answer being none. So this is why I haven't in any way pursued the issue of masks in court. It hasn't, you know, landed on my shores. I don't know whether it will or not, but it has been a year and a half. So let's get back now to our pals who just went on this woke binge yesterday. This is uncomfortable, but it's the truth. Once again, we called it right. Once again, we called it right. You know, it's not about male violence against women or women feeling that they can't go for a walk down the canal or that kind of thing. Ladies, when you go for a walk down the canal, it's a risky place. Do you know why? Because there's water there. So somebody could push you in and you could drown. So the level of risk down by the canal isn't really gender related. Very few things actually are gender related. I mean, okay, we have, you know, all of these critical theory people who have made vast fortunes through bell hooks, crooked individuals like that, you know, who've made vast fortunes through tenured positions in universities, basically race baiting and stirring hatred against men. But now I think, you know, we don't know, but I suspect, I just got a notification on my phone there. A woman dresses as household items, including pot noodles, in colourful January challenge. Colourful January challenge, yeah. Funny how, you know, they're like kind of wreckage of a ship that continue to re-emerge. You'd think they're sunk, but they keep coming back. Yeah, that one from Donegal. Dressing up God knows as what. She dressed up toilet cleaner or what have you. This is what happens when you're a really sad attention seeker. She is, she's a sad attention seeker. What's she doing? A box of tea bags or a bottle of milk from Donegal or something? Oh, please. Thomas Sheridan put a post some time ago, and he said, Ireland is in great danger because we are in the hands of madmen. That's correct, we are in the hands of madmen. And that's serious. And this is why it's so important not to comment about things that you don't know anything about. My evaluation of the Alan Haw situation is simply that on the strongest balance of probability, he murdered his family, and it's what's called a familicide. We're evaluating that from mainstream media sources, so immediately it's chancy. The truth matters, yeah. So in relation to Tullamore, we don't know what happened. I'm saying this over and over and over again, but that has to be reiterated. We don't know what happened in Tullamore. I would have every confidence that the Gardaí are taking that extremely seriously, and that they would like to, if you know what happened, if you're listening to this and you have any information, go to the guards in Tullamore or go to any Garda station. I strongly suspect that you'll get a hearing, that they listen to you. Otherwise, stay off Twitter, stay off Instagram, stay off Facebook, and just shut up. You're not helping. There's a grieving family out there. There are colleagues, there are kids who the woman taught. They're the immediately affected people, particularly her family. These things do happen. She's not the first school teacher in the world to be murdered. And alas, she's not the last, because this ties into something else. The woke are addicted to the notion of pre-crime, because the woke hate due process. Interestingly, when Sinead O'Connor's son died, the first pieces of support came from Conservatives. The woke didn't say anything. They stuck around and virtue signalled a bit later, but the genuine sympathy for a woman whose son had died came from Conservatives. This is always the way. Returning to the politicians and to the Irish Times and to all of those other worthies who are saying that now we have to have a conversation about gender-related violence. No, we have to have a conversation about you using a spurious concept of gender-related violence to pursue the Hegelian dialectic to divide and rule. That's what we need to have a conversation about, and trust me, we'll make sure that you do. Because the Conservatives tend to be better at due process. Look at America, look at Britain, look at Ireland. The Conservatives are the ones who rely upon the rule of law. The woke don't. The woke rely on a concept called pre-crime, and pre-crime is the spurious notion that you can assume somebody is guilty before they've actually been convicted of anything. Another feature of pre-crime is that even if a person has been exonerated, it can still be used against them. That's being promoted, particularly a dirtbird called Fergus Finlay. I hope he hears this. They promote the notion of pre-crime. Pre-crime is totalitarianism. Pre-crime is a police state. Pre-crime is the end of judicial oversight. Pre-crime is the end of your civil liberties. That has happened, by the way. But the Conservatives are much better at due process. And the Conservatives are much better at not actually wading into something until they know what has happened. But no. This is all about gender-related violence, according to our pals in the Irish Times and RTE and where have you, and to the politicians. And we now, the difference between them and us, and Thomas Sheridan has made this observation, is that the normies don't appear to have a memory. But that's okay, because we're not normies and we do have a memory. This is a dangerous time. It's a volatile time. And I completely stand over remarks I made yesterday about the hassle women get. And I'm not a virtue signaller, and I'm not one of these, woke male feminist soy boy cocks. But, women friends of mine have said, yeah, hassle is kind of part and parcel of being a woman. Well, yes, ladies, have you ever been queer bashed? So, there is a certain degree of empathy there, but a bigger, okay, you may be gay or that, but a bigger, confident man just doesn't get the hassle that women get. I used to get a lot of hassle when I was in my 20s, even into my 30s. I don't anymore. I don't. And again, reiterating what I said yesterday, I go to the shops without wearing a mask, and it's only a foolhardy individual, a foolhard, I suppose, if it's a noun. That's a good one. It's only a foolhard who would dare really try and challenge me about not wearing a mask in the supermarket when I already have official permission to not wear a mask in the supermarket. Because, again, you look at these Irish men, I'm being racist, I suppose. You look at these Irish men, and for them, any kind of disagreement anywhere makes them want to cry. Really. There's this whole generation of cocky Irish men out there on the bikes and the Lycra, confront them about anything, and you're being aggressive and and the microaggressions to these grown men. I understand how an awful lot of women out there are very, very frustrated with the calibre and conduct of the men in their lives. They don't want, it's a shit test, they don't want male feminists. They don't want these creepy soy boys. They don't want them around. Because if you look at Chitter yesterday, you know, there were these pathetic, creepy men. Oh, what do you want us to do? And like the horny glasses ones, women were saying blah 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 and giving lectures. Get someone to this absolute thing from Canada. Vote against your interests. Get out of my face. Get back into the gutter you belong in. How dare you vote against your interests? Go back to the gutter you belong to. How dare you vote against your interests? And this is a big, Thomas says, the greatest education ever. Oh man, yeah. Oh yeah, we couldn't have predicted this. What has happened, and Twitter's such a barometer of this. Twitter's an incredible medium. There's no medium like Twitter. No wonder they threw me off it. But these men who are saying, oh, what do you want us to do? And, you know, calling for, the men who are calling for curfews against men. This is a litmus test of the psychopath. It's like you had a frozen lake and suddenly it's defrosted and the water's gone down and we're seeing all the remains underneath. Or a glacier moves, we're seeing what's underneath it. Or a swamp is drained. Thank you, Mr. Trump. A swamp is drained. And we're seeing these swamp creatures, these psychopathic men who are calling for curfews against men. It's an absolute red flag of the psychopath. And the virtue signalling. Oh, I apologise for being a man. You know, this guy in his tight trousers whose photographs of Hoth Harbour talking about, you know, I can only imagine what it's like to be a woman. Well, why don't you contact our friends in telly? They'll put you down that right route, you fucking idiot. They all have the same face, don't they? They do have, it's an NPC face. It really is a face that these fuckers have. You know? But keep the screenshots, because there's never been a time like this. And I'm not in any way, I'm very mindful of the tragedy that happened in Tullamore. And the horrific crime that happened in Tullamore, and the bereavement and the loss to the community and to the family. I'm most mindful of that. But that doesn't mean that we should ignore what we're also observing elsewhere. We're not the ones behaving objectionably. Remember that. We're not the ones behaving objectionably. I'm going to say something else more contentious. That all of these ones who are doing candlelight vigils and who are talking on Twitter about male violence against women and who are talking about, you know, curfews against men, they're enjoying this. They're wallowing in this. Yes, they are. They're getting off on this. Now, I'm reluctant to really stir the hornet's nest, believe it or not, usually. But I made a decision in 2021 that I would speak out against the transgender lobby, and I would speak out fearlessly. You look at John Waters and Gemma O'Doherty and how much you might criticise both of them, particularly Gemma. They're fearless. That is an unassailable quality that both of those people have. So I have to be fearless in saying this, that the woke, including the politicians and the journalists, all these cat ladies in the Irish Times, you know, they take a moment to clean up the stale red wine and the pizza crumbs from the carpet. They are enjoying, wallowing in a terrible crime. We aren't. They are enjoying this. They are getting an energetic feed from it. Some people have told me that they are not going to go on social media until this dies down. And that's their right. I'm on social media now. But I know what they mean, because watch for the next great episode of something to come around. And what these people are doing, the virtue signalers and all the woke commentators What they're doing is an insult to the genuine victims of this. We don't know, I don't know the murdered person in Tullamore. I don't know the family, or colleagues, or neighbours, or friends. So as harsh as this next remark may sound, it's actually none of my business. The fact that it's all over the Irish Times because you have the cat ladies enjoying reporting on it or talking